I think it's a really interesting question mark because no place is going to want to not say something good about itself, and that's in some ways the essence of promotion. You should be paying attention to us. We're great. Come on. Um, but I think we also need to realize that there are thousands of cities around the world that are actually quite similar. They have similar populations, they have similar challenges. Um, so I think for me, the thing that I would be asking is maybe a range of questions. So the one might be, if I'm a small town, is the natural connection point into my place a direct entry point or via maybe a larger neighboring center? And so what, if you are, let's say you live in a small part, like, let's say within 100 kilometers of Cape Town, there are lots and lots of small places that are all kind of on the wider tourism network of, these are places that are great to travel to. They're beautiful. Um, but on their own, they're not an entry point. Cape Town is. And so the question mark is, well, how do these regions or places illustrate themselves in a way that they're connected to Cape Town? Maybe taking a step back, let's use two really big cities around the world that everybody knows, Paris and London. Paris and London did a joint campaign a few years ago with the Eurostar, targeting North American travelers, and they increased their footfall and travelers by 10%. That's super interesting. That you can have two of the world's most visible cities globally from a brand point of view working together to increase attraction. So I would say that the same holds true for smaller places. How do they connect to the main entry point? And often that can be quite difficult to do because there are some governance tensions there. There are some often political tensions. And I would say the UK is a good example of really struggling with this. There are lots of small places in the UK that people don't know about because they're not willing to work with their neighbors. Where instead of having an urban entry point of maybe 2 or 3 million people, you have 10 of 200 or 300,000 people. And it's quite difficult to scale that. And so I would say, where do you draw your kind of functional boundaries from a promotion point of view would be where I'd start. Maybe as an entry point for South African cities. And then I would also pay attention to how people are talking about you internationally. So I did some work for Manchester a few years ago, and I think Manchester spent lots of money targeting China as a trade and a transport and a connecting route, and spent a lot of money on that. And if you look at the conversations happening in China, Manchester doesn't really pop up on the map, as relevant. And so I would question, what is the legacy benefit of several decades of investing in brand in China? And should they maybe have targeted one city, or instead of the whole of China? What is that? So I would definitely try and look at data from not the South African perspective, but from a global perspective and say, is my place really relevant internationally? And it might be that it's not, and that's okay, because some smaller places offer better quality of life in many ways. So, so they're not necessarily, they're places we should have. And it might be being globally relevant just isn't that important for a place doing well. And so that's a good question to ask too.